Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 202 of the MTG Goldfish podcast. It's Seth, probably better known as Saffron Olive, and I'm joined today by two co-hosts. First off, Richard, the owner of MTG Goldfish. How's it going today, Richard?
What's up, Seth? Surprise spoilers. Yeah, I always love surprise spoilers.
Wizards loves just sneaking those spoilers in at the least opportune time. It's the holidays and so much stuff going on, and it's just like, spoilers, talk about that now, everyone. So it's fun, though. I never can complain about seeing new cards. That's probably the best part of Magic, I think, is just like seeing new cards. It's so fun and exciting. So along with Richard, we also have special guest Crim. How's it going today, Crim?
Hey, what's up, Seth? It's actually going real great. Also excited on these spoilers. Just been like super, I've been like waiting to see all the mechanics. So I'm just excited to see like spectacle and all that stuff.
Yeah, we got the one random leaked spectacle card, and everyone was trying to figure out the mechanic, and now we finally know. So our show today is going to be a big chunk spoilers, talking about the stuff that came out in just the last few hours, most of it. So spoilers first, then we're going to talk some Magic Arena stuff. There were some announcements last week. The top 32 players that are going to be in the 2019 Pro League were also announced, so we're going to talk briefly about that. And then, of course, fish mail. So that's the plan for today's show. Before we jump into it, a quick reminder that our show today is brought to you by spikesacademy.com, the world's first Magic the Gathering e-learning academy. They got some sweet online courses by really amazing players like Paulo Vitor Rosa, Reed Duke teaching classes. So you can check them out over at spikesacademy.com and even get 10% off with the coupon code GOLDFISH. And to learn more, check them out at spikes_academy on Twitter. So thank you so much to Spikes Academy for the support. And with that out of the way, Richard, let's talk some spoilers. Why don't you guide us through some of these new cards?
All right. Spectacle is the new mechanic, but before we talk about Spectacle, I want to talk about some of the promos. We have a new legendary hate bear, so hateful that it turned blue. Lavinia Azorius Renegade. It's a blue-white hate bear, 2/2. Legendary creature, human soldier. Each opponent can't cast non-creature spells with converted mana costs greater than the number of lands that player controls. Whenever an opponent casts a spell, if no mana was spent to cast it, counter that spell.
This card, so this card, it's one of those cards that I think the further back you go format-wise, the better it gets. In Standard, this card's pretty meh. I'm not sure, unless there's something coming up in the next couple sets that we don't know about that this hates on. It seems like a card that's pretty close to just unplayable in Standard. I guess if someone breaks Omniscience or something, it's a hate card there. But for the most part, this card has a lot of potential, I think, in Modern, Legacy, Vintage, where it hits on a ton of different things. So that's mostly where I'm excited for this one.
I'm just happy that it's not Detain for Lavinia. Like, Detain was such a bad mechanic. So I don't really know what else this card is used for outside of like older formats right now. I can't think about anything either.
Yeah, we don't need to go that old. Like in Modern, it's already doing things, right? Like,
what does it do in Modern?
So in Modern, I think some of the biggest, most obvious thing is it's very good against Tron. If you have this down and your opponent assembles turn 3 Tron, they can't just Karn you. They can still cast their creatures, but it does shut that down. It can be okay against Storm if your opponent's trying to like combo off with 2 lands. They can't cast Gifts Ungiven or whatever. So there's some like fringe potential there. I guess Hollow One. Your opponent can't cast free Hollow Ones. So there are some things that it does in Modern. And then I think it just gets even better once you get to like Legacy with Lion's Eye Diamonds and Force of Wills. I also think this card, it's really weird to me that it's not symmetrical. It feels like a card that traditionally would have affected each player instead of just opponents. So I think it's a little strange that like in Legacy, if you're playing a Force of Will mirror, it's kind of like whoever gets this first is the winner of the Force of Will battle to some extent. Unlike something like Gaddock Teague, which this card is is a little bit reminiscent of, but Gaddock Teeg affects everybody. So you can't force of will if you ever Gaddock Teeg out. Linvala is just hating on your opponent, which I think makes it a little more powerful and is kind of interesting, that shift in design there.
Yeah, it just hits so many things in older formats, like dig through times, mana dorks. Like, your mana dorks can't cast non-creature spells now. And I think they just made it blue to balance it. Like, if this was mono white, this would be like everywhere. And they just randomly threw blue in, and the only blue part of the spell is the second clause that says counter a spell. But it could have easily said each opponent can't cast. But for now they can cast it, you just counter it, and that makes it blue. So that's a little weird. But oh, this is so hateful, and it's WotC's cleanup of fast mana. We all know fast mana was like the most broken thing ever through Black Lotus, Dredge, Phyrexian mana, or not Dredge. What's the Tassiger mechanic? Delve. Right? Like, all of these mechanics, like, they tried to make new mechanics, and they're like, okay, we'll just cheat on resources, and then, like, everything went to crap. And now Lavinia says no. Right? You must have the same number of lands as the spells you're trying to cast. So I expect this to see play in older formats. It might just randomly hurt things. Like, the mana dork clause is a big deal. Commander, this will cause problems. Like, if you turn 1 birds and then try to turn 2 cultivate or something, Lavinia says no. So this will be interesting. And it's Azorius. It's a weird combination. If this was Selesnya or mono white, it would be a lot stronger.
I don't think the colors don't really bother me. Like, Meddling Mage it reminds me of Meddling Mage, like a twist on Meddling Mage, but Meddling Mage is a blue-white card. And last time we were in Ravnica, what was the really bad one? Council of something. It was like a 4-mana thing that kept
the 2/4
casting thing. Yeah. I don't think anyone ever played it, but it was similar, where it keeps your opponent from casting things. So I kind of see this in the tradition of some of the past cards we've seen from the Azorius Guild. So the colors don't really bother me, but I do think it's a pretty powerful card.
Yeah, the flavor on it definitely makes sense with Azorius stuff from like
previous sets. I know Vince is giddy somewhere as he reads this. All right, next card. Light Up the Stage. 2 in a red. It's a sorcery. It has Spectacle red. And what Spectacle is you may cast the spell for the Spectacle cost rather than its mana cost if an opponent lost life this turn. Okay, so it's like raid or something where you actually have to do something and damage your opponent before you get to activate the cheaper cost usually. And then this particular card, exile the top 2 cards of your library until the end of your turn. You may play those cards.
Card's really good. This card, I think, we saw this card like a few days ago. It leaked out, and we didn't know what Spectacle was. And my take at the time was, if it's pretty easy to cast it for 1 mana, it's really powerful, and it's pretty easy to cast it for 1 mana. Like, if you're an aggro deck, a burn deck, it's not that hard to damage your opponent. And then the really interesting part of this card is how it's worded. It says, until the end of your next turn. So if you cast this during your main phase, those cards sit in exile. If they're instants, you can cast them during your opponent's turn. If not, you can cast them during your next turn after you untap all your mana. So I think this card is pretty powerful for aggro decks, or for decks even like burn in older formats. I think there's a chance that it shows up there. A draw 2 for 1 mana is just pretty good.
Yeah, the last thing burn needs is a way to draw more cards.
Is this an auto-include in, like, modern burn?
I don't think so. It seems good, but, like, if it were to go in anywhere in modern, I think it would go into burn.
Yeah, I think that's the most obvious choice, and I'm not really sure if it's worth it or not. It seems pretty close. Like, you can always cast it for 1 mana and burn. The only downside, I guess, is maybe there's a scenario where you're like empty-handed and you top deck this with 2 lands, because burn runs pretty light on lands intentionally, and you can't cast it. And if it was like another Boros Charm or something, you would have just won the game. But drawing 2 for 1 might be enough upside to see it show up in modern burn. And in standard, Rakdos looks pretty pushed as far as being aggro. Like from what we've seen so far and what we know of Rakdos, it's a pretty aggressive guild. So I think that's where it might show up. Or even like the mono red decks we see in Standard, those decks are really good at dealing damage. So just a draw 2 for 1 mana, I think it can definitely show up in a deck like that.
Yeah, and important to note, Spectacle is a loss of life. So if your opponent cracks a fetch during your main phase for some reason, that turns on Spectacle. If you're playing EDH and one of your other opponents decides to, I don't know, lightning bolt, an opponent, it turns on your Spectacle. So you don't have to do the damage yourself. Loss of life counts.
Yeah.
Next card, we have a Rakdos Firewheeler. Black, red. So it's 4 CMC. It's a 4/3 human rogue. When it enters the battlefield, it deals 2 damage to target opponent and 2 damage up to 1 target creature or planeswalker.
That card seems sweet.
Yeah.
It's 4 damage.
Yeah, that card seems real sweet.
I think, yeah, it's similar to like a Searing Blood, I guess, is the easiest comparison, except you're getting a very on-curve body. A 4/3 for 4 is already a pretty good deal. In Standard, it's a little awkward where you have like Ravenous Chupacabra also in the 4-drop slot, but I think if you're an aggro deck, having a pretty powerful body, bigger than a Chupacabra body, that also just shocks your opponent's face when it enters the battlefield, it seems like a pretty good top end for some sort of Rakdos aggro deck to me.
Yeah, this casting cost though, it is so when I saw this, I'm like, Siege Rhino? But it's only a 4/3 and its bolt is like in random direction. It's like splitting targets and you don't gain life. So not Siege Rhino, but it is only an uncommon and only 2 colors.
So I think I would have been more skeptical of this card before seeing how Guilds of Ravnica played out. Because when we first saw Guilds of Ravnica and saw like Niv Mizzet, saw Crackling Drake, Golgari Finebroker, I saw those cards and I thought, okay, they're powerful, but that mana cost is going to make them really hard to play. But we've been in a Standard where Crackling Drake is one of the key cards in the format. Niv Mizzet is one of the best top-end threats. Golgari Finebroker, very heavily played in Golgari decks. So the mana cost doesn't scare me nearly as much now as it did back before we saw how the Guilds of Ravnica members of the cycle played out.
Definitely.
But those cards win you the game. This card just gives you incremental value. Is it worth the mana?
I mean, Finebroker just is like an Eternal Witness. It's pretty incremental value-y.
True. But the other 2 win you the game. I don't know. This one's a little tough. Crim, what do you think? Do you think it's worth this quasi? I don't know what this is. What is a card that does this effect? We don't have a card that does this, right?
Not one that like also hits a planeswalker too.
Yeah. It's the it's the new rules that they have to tempt it like this, right? Because previously you could just redirect the opponent damage to a planeswalker, but now it's this.
I mean, it's like a Searing Blaze or Searing Blood is what it basically on a body,
Yeah.
but the effect is pretty similar.
I don't know. I think we're also going to have now that we'll have like the access to all the other shock lands. I'm also not concerned about the mana cost.
All right. Next
Our
up,
mana's
we
gonna
have
be good.
Oh yeah,
Growth
Mana's gonna be
Spiral.
very good.
Growth Spiral. Speaking
Yes.
of mana. Green and a blue. It's an instant. Draw a card. You may put a land card from your hand onto the battlefield.
I mean, it's instant speed explore essentially. Like it's very much explore, but at instant speed. And explore shows up in modern sometimes. It was very good in Standard back when last time it was in Standard. And you get the upside that you can just kind of cycle, like leave up counter magic and cycle it at the end of your opponent's turn, which probably makes it better than explore, assuming you have the right colors of mana.
The fact that this is instant, it's great. This is probably like my favorite card that's been spoiled so far. I mean, I just like the idea of being able to like ramp and like, it's already just a way to draw, right? And then it's at 2 mana, it's instant speed. I love the fact that it's instant. That's probably my favorite part.
Yeah, the land will never come down instant speed, although I dream of this scenario because we've had like Atarka's command, like things like this, and I've never seen anyone drop a land in at instant speed. But I can imagine a scenario where you're like, okay, they're off Primeval Titan mana or something. Let me tap out and play my Planeswalker. And you're like, aha, surprise ramp. And then you drop a land on their turn. And then your turn, you drop the last land you need and then drop your bomb. So that's the dream scenario. But most of the time, you're probably just going to cycle this thing. You probably don't have enough lands in your hand. I don't know. But I've never seen anyone drop a land in off of a Tarkus command, like ever.
I think it'll make a difference here. The putting a land into play like this time around in those colors looks like it's going to be pretty sweet. Like,
It's also worth mentioning it does come into play on tap. So,
Yeah.
I mean, I guess that's also similar to Explore, but it kind of makes it cost 1 mana because you get 1 mana back right away if you do have the extra land.
That's pretty good. What if you drop in a 2 mana land? Then it's free.
With a amulet on the battlefield, untap it, and then you just Primeval Titan and win. Oh my god, please no, not that deck again.
Last promo is actually a reprint. We have Mortify. So 1 white and a black, destroy target creature or enchantment. Yeah, Mortify's back.
I'm happy to see it back. We had original Ravnica, Putrefy, and Mortify. Then when we returned to Ravnica, we had Putrefy but not Mortify. So I think it's Mortify's time. Mortify is due for a reprint in Standard.
I'm just happy that I can destroy an enchantment, so...
Get rid of those Search for Iskantas.
Yep, and then Experimental Frenzies, and...
Yeah.
We have Assassin's Trophy. It can destroy everything.
Okay. Well, that would require us to play that.
But now we have perfect mana with the rest of the shocks. Come on, get your story straight.
That's true. Except for ramping our opponent up. That always feels good in Standard.
All right, here's my favorite card. My favorite card of the 8 cards, actually 10 cards we've seen. The Haunt of Hightower. 4 black. It's a legendary creature vampire. Flying lifelink. When the Haunt of Hightower attacks, defending player discards a card. When a card is put into an opponent's graveyard from anywhere, put a +1/+1 counter on the Haunt of Hightower. It's a 3/3.
I gotta say, Richard, it is hilarious to see your magic transformation over the time that we've been doing the podcast. You have went from like the spiky legacy player to the filthiest casual commander player over the past 200 episodes.
But it gets so big, Seth.
It seems like a sweet commander. It does. It's like Vulturous Zombie, the Golgari flyer that has the same mechanic, except you play it as your commander, which is pretty sweet. It can get really big pretty fast.
Really fast. Like, if you just like... Wait, does Dark Field discard?
This card is good at all.
What? You'll see the power of it on Commander Clash. Hold on.
I definitely agree with Crim as far as Standard, though. I think this card is stone unplayable in Standard.
Yeah. Okay, seriously. We know it's unplayable in Standard, okay? It's a 6 mana 3/3 that does nothing. Yes, we get that. But in Commander, you play the Haunt of Hightower. It's your commander, by the way. It's always available. You Dark Deal, and then you just one-shot someone. And you gain life out of the deal. Look at that. It has evasion, too. It's so good.
It seems like the perfect commander for the mono black mill deck.
Yep. This was the piece that was missing.
This one right here.
Yeah, if you want to build vampires, probably better to go Mardu and do Edgar Markov, but Haunt of Hightower, mono black mill. Mark my words.
Mono black mill's taking off next year.
It's gonna be so big, and it flies. It has lifelink. All right. No more casual talk. Let's go. Simic Ascendancy. Green, blue, enchantment. You can pay 1 green and a blue, so it has an activated ability. Put a +1/+1 counter on target creature. When 1 or more +1/+1 counters are put on a creature you control, put that many growth counters on Simic Ascendancy. At the beginning of your upkeep, if you have 20 or more growth counters on Simic Ascendancy, you win the game.
This is my kind of card. I love winning the game in these type of ways.
There's got to be some kind of auto win card in every. This card is so weird. Like I think it's going to be bad, but it's going to be definitely fun to play with.
I think that's probably about right. I don't think it'll actually be competitive, although there are some interesting ways to add counters in Standard. Like, the most obvious home in Standard is something like Merfolk, where you have Q-Mana, which can just put a counter on your entire team by tapping a bunch of Merfolks. So you can get to 20 counters pretty quickly. Plus you have like Jadelight Ranger, Deep Root Elite. There's a lot of +1/+1 counter synergies. Is that the right way to build Merfolk? Probably not, but it's a really fun way to build Merfolk.
Yeah.
Plus, this suggests that we're probably getting a +1/+1 counter theme for Simic, which is kind of traditional, so maybe we'll get some other sweet counter cards to work with it, but it definitely feels like an against the odds card, where you're trying to, like, achieve this cool win condition. You're not necessarily trying to win a Grand Prix if you put Simic Ascendancy in your deck.
I mean, we at least Hadana's Climb will have some more cards to be like to play with.
The problem is it needs a combo piece, because otherwise it's like the ultimate win more cards. If you manage to put 20 +1/+1 counters on your creatures and you haven't won the game, like, I don't know what this is. Like, I don't know, your opponent has an Ensnaring Bridge or something in Standard, because I don't know why you haven't won yet, right? So it's a win more card, unless there is some, 2-card combo that you can just dump counters, right? I guess, like, Walking Ballista type cards, like, if you can get 20 counters on a single card,
5 color,
no.
and you play the artifact from the pseudo Walking Ballista, the really bad one.
Shalai, Voice of Plenty, puts counters on everything. Like, I don't think it's impossible to build around. I do think this is probably another card that's sweeter in Commander. There's a couple of commanders that work really well with it. Jinara, Asura of War. You can just pay 1 and a white and put a counter on it. So if you can make infinite mana, you can just add counters a whole bunch of times and get up to 20 counters really quickly. So, and +1/+1 counter themes are pretty popular in Commander. So I think maybe that's where this card will see the most play, outside of, like, against the odds decks in Standard.
All right, help me break Commander, guys. We have Simic Ascendancy on the battlefield. We have a doubling season, and I play Dark Depths. What is what is a way to make Dark Depths a creature so that this just instantly triggers? Or instant? Well, I guess it has to be the beginning of next upkeep, unless I can drop the land at instant speed with Growth Spiral.
The other problem is, remember, it's 1 or more counters. So if you can, so putting 20 counters on one creature still
it's
gives
only
you
one
counter. So you actually,
this
you're
card is
better
garbage.
You're better off going wide. Like, if you have a Nissa that puts a counter on a whole bunch of tokens, then you'd get like 10 counters because you get 1 for each creature.
So
but
what you're saying
season actually doesn't work with it very well.
It's like Avenger of Zendikar auto win with Simic Ascendancy then.
Yes, that's the direction you want to go with Simic Ascendancy. If you play Avenger and then play a fetch land and double trigger twice, that probably gets you to 20 counters. Then you just, like, take an extra turn and win.
Yeah. All right. Well, I wanted Dark Depths, but this is unfortunate.
It's okay. Avenger of Zendikar is coming back. Back on the map.
All right. Rix Maddie Reveler, 1 in a red. Human Shaman, it's a 2/2. Spectacle, 2 black and a red. When Rix Maddie Reveler enters the battlefield, discard a card, then draw a card. If Spectacle was paid, instead discard your hand, then draw 3 cards.
This is the kind of 2-drop that I like. This is one of those 2-drops that it's fine on turn 2. You're not excited about a 2/2 for 2, but a 2/2 for 2's relatively on curve. Plus the looting is often beneficial, or like rummaging, reverse looting. But then you get to the late game, you've kind of dumped your entire hand in your aggro deck. You attack or throw a lightning strike or something at your opponent. Then you basically get like a Bedlam Reveler. You get the similar effect for 4 mana. And Bedlam Reveler is a card that's very strong in Modern. And this doesn't require the build around aspect. You just want to be aggro so you can dump your hand quickly. But it seems pretty easy to get this to a point where, like, on turn 4, on turn 5 in a Rakdos aggro deck, you're just casting it and drawing 3 cards off of your 2/2, which is really strong.
This card seems like, it can be really powerful. I don't know. It doesn't look that good to me. I understand what you're getting at though with the card itself, but it just looks kind of soft to me.
Yeah, you have to play it at the perfect moment, because when you're out of gas, it's probably hard to trigger Spectacle. It's probably hard to hit your opponent when you're out of gas, which is when you need the Spectacle to come online. But if you manage to, like, curve out perfectly and, you still have creatures and stuff, and then you manage to refill your hand, then it could be okay.
And your opponent hasn't interacted.
Yeah, your opponent hasn't interacted. But 2 mana 2/2, We'll see what Rakdos has. But 4 drop slot is pretty strong nowadays. This doesn't really seem to be that crazy.
But it's a 2-drop. It's a 2-drop. Remember that.
Well,
it's not
definitely
like you
don't
have
want to play.
cast it
Yeah.
for 4 mana.
It's like when you play. Oh, what's like Abbot of Carroll Keep on turn 2. And you're like, I don't want to do this, but I'm going to do this anyway. It's like Snapcaster on turn 2. You're like, why am I doing this? Right? Like, you never want to play this on turn 2.
All right. Fair enough.
All right. Rafter Demon. 2 black and a red. It's a 4/2. It's a demon. Common demon. Spectacle, 3 black, red. When Rafter Demon enters the battlefield, if its spectacle cost was paid, each opponent discards a card.
Unplayable.
Yeah.
Is this like the first demon that doesn't fly?
No.
Go back to
Have we had-
Kamigawa.
Seizo or Seizo, the one that I played in the Mono Black
wait.
episode.
That's a demon? I didn't know that.
Yeah, it's a demon spirit.
There's a lot of really bad non-flying demons in Kamigawa block.
Have there been any recent non-flying demons?
That might not be. Like, I think most demons, especially modern ones, do fly.
How recent is Soul Cage Fiend?
Oh, Evison restored, I think.
Oh,
So that's
yeah, that's
fairly
right.
that's fairly recent. So there are some non-flying demons. I mean, this card, it's probably fine in limited. A 4/2 for 4 that you can spectacle for some extra advantage. It could be like filler in your Rakdos deck. In standard though, there's no. It dies to shock. Your 4-drop that dies to shock. You do not want that in standard.
It dies to shock in limited too, Seth.
That's
All right.
true.
Last card. Gate Colossus. 8 mana. It's an 8/8. It's a construct.
yeah.
This spell costs 1 less for each gate you control. Gate Colossus can't be blocked by creatures with power 2 or less. When a gate enters the battlefield under your control, you may put Gate Colossus from your graveyard on top of your library.
It minimizes the downside of all your lands coming into play tap because you get that 1 mana discount. So combo, I guess.
Oh, Maze's End has a win condition again.
It's so resilient. You kill it once and then just play another gate and it comes back on top.
Yeah. I could see like it happening where you accidentally lock yourself out of a draw because you're putting this back on top, and you
So I
got
don't
a
want
bunch
this
of
card
tap
at all.
lands.
We need a card that untaps gates, and then maybe we can get there. Like that's always been
Amulet
the problem with the
reprint.
gate
So
deck.
Amulet?
Yeah,
it's a
Amulet
really
reprint.
freaking
Something
Amulet.
coming
like
up.
that. Your deck is just so slow if you build around gates. You need, like, to get 8 gates, you're probably dead by the time you play that many tap lands and try to gate Colossus. It's just not, it's not a practical plan, really.
What if it's like an amulet on like a bear that only affects gates?
That's
like
what
a
I
2
was-
mana 2/2, and then when you put a gate into play, you can untap it.
That would be sweet. I think that would be fun. I think people love the gate archetype all the way back to Maze's End. It's a fan favorite, and we got a little bit of support in Guilds of Ravnica. So it would be sweet if they pushed it enough that you could at least build a somewhat competitive casual deck out of gates. But I don't think we're there yet. Just Gate Colossus and what is there, like some big flyer from Guilds of Ravnica that benefits from gates? The blue enchantment that draws you cards. But we need more to really make a semi-competitive gate deck, I think.
There needs to be an auto win.
If it was competitive, would it really be fun if it was competitive?
I mean, it would be. People love Maze's End. That is
Because it's so janky, though, right? That's the whole point. It's like, I got you. I finally did it.
That like Maze's End was terrifying. I played blue white in that format, so I just boarded in anything that had attack power. I don't know, like Life Bane Zombie, sure, whatever, give me that.
Do you think there's any chance they just reprint Maze's End? Like, is that a possibility, or is it too off flavor? That's the main thing I've heard people say is like, there's no maze or something anymore. I don't keep up on that aspect enough.
I'm not too sure because like lore wise, but I mean, I would like to just see it for the fun of it.
I would like to see another version of it, like a I win the game card based on gates, but not necessarily Maze's End.
They could just juice it up with gates on board and in the graveyard, and then it becomes real competitive. But I'm also not R&D for obvious reasons.
that would be sweet. All right, so that's all our guilds. Nope, wrong set. That's all of our Ravnica Allegiance spoilers so far. So they're releasing spoilers every day this week. So they're going to go through all the mechanics and everything. So next week, I guess we're going to get the rest of the mechanics to talk about.
Yeah, we should have the slow trickle of mechanics for the rest of the week. And then my guess is we kind of get like a week off over the holidays, and then we'll start full spoiler season January 2nd. It's been announced. And then, I mean, pre-release is the 17th, which means, or no, 19th. So essentially a month from today will be the pre-release for the set. So we're almost there. It's not too long. I gotta say, before we move on to our other topics, I'm pretty impressed that we're a week away from, or a month away from a set release. We're entering a week away from spoiler season for a new set. And standard is still pretty decent right now. Like, it's been a while since we've made it through 2 or 3 months of a standard format without it getting really boring and salved. So, good job, Wizards, with our current standard format. Anyway, let's move on. We had a couple of other topics that we wanted to hit quickly before getting to fish mail. And the first one, I wanted to have Crim on because we were talking about this a little bit earlier in the week. Some Magic Arena changes. So there was a whole bunch of stuff that happened on Arena. They had this big Rank 1.0 update, but the couple of things that I mostly wanted to talk about was, number one, they are supporting ranked play only for best of one mode. So if you want to climb rank, theoretically qualify for stuff, which will probably be attached to rank, that's only for best of one, and also limited and constructed. The other topic was they tried again to get rid of individual card rewards. It seems like every few months they give it a shot and then everyone freaks out and they back off. But they once again tried and failed to get rid of individual card rewards. So Crim, what do you think about these changes? You play a lot of Arena. You do the Arena series on the YouTube channel, which a little bit of hype. You should check it out if you haven't seen the Free to Play Fish series or 5-0 Fish. But Crim, what are your thoughts on these changes?
Personally, I thought, so I've been consistently, I've just been sitting and grinding the best of one ladder. And I'm not gonna lie to you, the best of one grind feels kind of bad. I'm not a huge fan of best of one. I really do like best of three, but there's pros and cons of just only doing best of one right now for ranked play. And I really like that you see random cards. Like, I play on Mordigo in the main deck, and there's a lot of random deck building and stuff like that. But the thing here is you can lose a lot of games. Like, everyone is just trying to aggro you out with mono white immediately and mono red. That's what it is on the ladder. And I've only gotten up to platinum so far, and it just feels weird not sideboarding. There's an element of Magic that's missing from that. This is, of course, just a different format, right? You can just look at it as a different format, and that makes it a little bit easier. But I don't know how I feel if this is were to qualify for anything. I don't know if I like qualifying through best of one.
Yeah, that's.
It's
like
that
best
mostly.
of one is an option, but I'm not a big fan of having it be the competitive mode. And even if Wizards wants it to be the competitive mode, I think the part that bothers me more is that they've completely just not shut down in the sense that you can't play it, but not allowed you to have best of three be ranked at all. So I think that's weird. I would have been okay with them having both options being ranked or just best of three being ranked, but having only best of one be ranked, that just is such a big change compared to how everyone has played Magic for the past 25 years. That's a really seismic shift in the way the game is played.
Yeah. Just not having the ability, also because, it helps sometimes, you get bad variants in Magic, and it's nice to know when I'm trying to qualify for something, I have a shot in the next game, right? If I don't draw any lands this game and I sit on 2 or 3 lands, I have a shot in game 2 or something like that.
Yeah, there's always another game around the corner, which I'm kind of the same way. For me, if I get mana screwed in a best of one match, it's way more painful than if you get mana screwed in a best of three match, because you always know, okay, I can win the next 2. That's fine. That's Magic. That's just how the game happens. But it's really brutal when you lose an entire match and then sometimes an entire tournament based on that one game of mana screw. What do you think, Richard? What's your take on this best of one thing?
All right. So from the filthiest of casuals, here's my perspective, guys. I like best of one. I think this is where Magic will be going for a multitude of reasons. So I think sitting down and playing Magic for 30 minutes is gone, right? Nowadays, we don't do that anymore. We sit on the bus for 5 minutes. We want to get in a quick game of Magic. You know, we sit on the toilet, want to get a quick game of Magic in, right? Like, you're sitting at the restaurant, you want to get a quick game of Magic in. So games have moved away from that, right? And I don't know, right? Like, when we talk about competitive play, right? They're never gonna make like the World Championship come down to just a single game, right? So if they keep going best of one, it's gonna be something weird like how we got our champion this year, where you play multiple decks and play multiple best of ones, effectively making it a best of 7, but without sideboards. But instead of sideboards, you have different decks. Or if it's ladder related, it's not going to be a single ladder game that determines your fate. It's going to be grind your way into challenger or mythic tier or whatever they're going to make, like top 100, top 200 to qualify for the mythic championship. So you're going to play like literally hundreds of best of ones to get there. So yes, while you may get screwed against get mana screwed against one opponent, in the long run, it'll be kind of the same. And I don't know, I kind of just like best of one. Like I just don't like tying up all of my time playing Magic. Like the worst thing, if you think way back to Magic Online, and we used to have events instead of leagues where you actually had to book like a 4-hour time slot to like play some Magic, right? Then they moved to leagues so you can play any match at any time. So now you're like 30 minutes, I can probably finish this match, right? Maybe it'll take an hour if we do a control mirror, but it's a shorter amount of time. But now with the best of one, you're like 5 minutes. All right, this is probably going to end in some reasonable amount of time. So I do like that fast pace, and I think most casual players will like that too, because that's what we're used to in games nowadays, right? Like we don't sit down and you can't even sit down and game for 4 hours on your phone. It's going to run out of battery, right? You got like 10 minutes and then you got to charge
battery
again.
packs are for, Richard. Come on now.
Then my phone becomes too hot. I can't hold it anymore.
Also,
It's a
remember,
free heater in the winter.
right now you can only play Arena on your computer. Like it's not like you can sit on the toilet and play Arena. I guess you can carry around your laptop with you, but it's not like you just pull out your phone or your tablet or whatever.
But that's where they're going. And I think it's pretty interesting because Artifact just released, and Artifact is like the exact opposite of this. It's one game, and that game goes on forever, right?
Yep.
But the game time of it is basically like a best of 3. Right? So that's how it reduces variance. The game is just longer, but it's slower pace. You gotta sit down. You gotta clear out some time. So it reduces variance like that. Magic, tabletop Magic, reduces it with best of 3s and sideboards and things like that. And I assume Arena is gonna do something like 7 best of 1s, and you gotta bring unique decks. And that makes it look more diverse. And that sells more cards, and I think that's what Wizards wants. So I think they're gonna do kind of like, you know, Team Unify, but you're the only one on your team, right? And you gotta bring 7 decks, right? Like something like that.
So Crim, I got a question for you. Since you've played more best of ones than I have, because traditionally I just didn't really enjoy best of one. I guess maybe I'm just stuck in my ways, and I'm used to best of 3. But you played more than I have. How big of a deal is the die roll? Because that's one thing that is very concerning to me, and my perception of best of one is if you win the die roll, you're a very heavy favorite, and in best of 3s, it's kind of somewhat evened out by having 3 games decide the match. Have you run into that at all? Like, is it a huge deal to win the die roll in a best of 1 match?
Against aggro, yes. Like seriously, like the fact that you can go the mono white deck is able to flip a Danto's Landing or what? No, Legion's Landing. Sorry, if they're able to flip like Legion's Landing and they're on the play, they get to do all these things, and you're so far behind. Like Golden Demise, like Ritual of Soot doesn't even feel like it's good enough sometimes. Like, especially like when they get to when like on the turn you're about to play the Soot, they go ahead and play like a Danto Vanguard. And like after the board wipe, usually you're just at about a health total where a Danto will just close out the game. So Golden Demise is kind of like an all-time high for me right now. I've gone ahead and made 2 different decks. Like I have a Grixis deck that is heavily geared towards like beating aggro, and I've had to make like 2, and then one that's just geared towards beating control. So like cause then sometimes you really just need a Golden Demise, and being on the draw just sometimes it's just not enough. Like, you really do need it against the red deck.
So is it time for a coin, or I guess a lotus petal in Magic terms?
Well, not a lotus petal.
Hearthstone recognized this, right? And they said if
Yeah.
you're not going first, you get a coin and you get, a power boost for one turn to make up for going second, right? And, Hearthstone is best of one, obviously. So is
Yeah.
it time for a Magic coin to offset that? Because I do think going first, is a big advantage, and, big in quotes, I don't know what it is, but it's going to be some advantage. And that's something you can't control, right? So when the game starts, you're already at an advantage or disadvantage based on nothing, which people don't really like.
Yeah.
So coin time, or
I think the coin can be abused, though. like, like, the coin is very powerful in Magic.
well,
So-
you play Lavinia to turn off that coin.
Oh, wow.
I will say, I watched the live stream they did last week where they were talking about these changes, and one of the things that Chris said was they were looking at other changes they could make to reduce the variance and make the best of one mode more competitive. So I don't know if it'll be a coin, but I would not be at all surprised to see them have some sort of rule change to try to account for how much variance is tied to the die roll and stuff like that.
Yeah, and the other problem is the difference between tabletop and arena. So in arena, they give you they take two hands and they give you the one that more matches your mana curve to reduce this variance, right? So your mull to 4 is less likely to happen in a best of one. In a best of 3, you would just lose that game and hope to win the next 2, right?
Yeah.
In paper, if everyone's trying to emulate their favorite best of one deck, you can't really do that, right? So there's going to be this weird difference, which I don't know that they want, right? But there's some things you just can't replicate on tabletop. And this two hands thing is one of the things that best of one has that we can't do in paper.
Yeah, I wonder how much of a barrier that puts from people moving from arena into paper Magic or Magic Online, if that's a thing. But because in some sense especially if they make more rules changes, you're getting to the point where it's kind of its own game. Like, in some sense, it's not standard. It's like Commander or some other set of Magic where it has its own rules and doesn't necessarily apply to other forms of Magic. And I don't know if that's a good thing, and maybe that's still just me being stuck in the past, where with Magic Online, one of the big ideas was people could easily move back and forth, and Magic Online was supposed to be an exact replication of the paper game. It's starting to look like Arena is going to be similar to Magic, but you're not going to be able to just take the same way you play on Arena and just go to your FNM and play that way, or go to a GP and play that way. And I don't know if that's a good thing.
I think it's a good thing. I think Magic needs to change. I mean, it's a great game, but like society and culture and entertainment and all these things change. I think it's not fair to expect Magic to remain the same, because if you go back and play games from your childhood, if you actually just strip away the nostalgia for a second, these games are like terrible, right? Like,
seriously.
We didn't understand how to make games entertaining. Have you held a Nintendo controller? That just like cuts into your hands now, right? Like, we didn't understand ergonomics. We didn't understand
N64.
anything. So, over time we've gotten better, right? And we have evolved our entertainment. So I think Magic needs to evolve as well. And maybe Magic Arena is where it's at, right? Like, we send email now. We don't send letters in the mail. Like, we don't correspond and write letters like we used to. But that doesn't mean the mail service has gone out of business. Mail is still used for many things, but most people use text message, IM, email, things like that, right? So maybe that's where Magic is going. There's always a home for tabletop Magic, but, most people play Arena now. I don't know.
Maybe.
Do you still write letters, Seth?
The other side of that is Magic has survived 25 years by being a really great game. Like, that's the reason why it survived when pretty much all the other games have come and went during that time. I guess, like, Yu-Gi-Oh's still around, but those games tend to come and go, and they do that in digital form even faster. Like, it was a year ago that Hex was the craze of Magic players, and now Hex has no money and is apparently, like, going to be shutting down or something along those lines. So I guess my concern would be kind of like how we listen to music on, like, albums, record albums, then cassette tapes were like the new sweet thing, or 8-tracks or whatever, and then you had CDs, and oh my god, this is the greatest thing ever. But now no one listens to CDs. You just, fire up Spotify or iTunes or whatever you use. So I think there's some risk by making your product arguably worse, that you're killing the thing that made Magic be able to survive for 25 years. Like, does Magic become another one of these games that sure shoots up really high in the Twitch rankings, but then a couple years from now, people are like, man, this is the best one thing. It's just not fun. The format's not great. It's not like it used to be. And then Magic suffers as a whole because of that. I think that's the other side of it. And I don't know what'll happen, but I think there's some risk in changing the way people have fundamentally played Magic for 25 years and, like, has made the game successful and survived for 25 years.
Yep. That is a risk.
I mean, yeah.
We're about to find out. We're about to find out if it pays off.
I mean, people don't even want lands anymore. A lot of people just say they just want lands removed as a whole. Like, because, I mean, like, they hate the fact that you need, like, you can get mana screwed or you can get flooded. Like, it's just, like, not fun Magic when that happens.
I mean, they remove land destruction. What next?
For shame. Well, the other thing we want to mention quickly, and then we got to hit some fish mail. Any other thoughts on Arena before we move on? Last chance on Arena stuff.
Yeah, once again, just like, I think Best of One, though, like, has its problems. As I said, it comes with some cool things, which is mostly deck building. Now, when you take into account of deck building, you don't have 75 cards, you have 60. Unless, of course, you want to go up to 75 anyways. I think that has forced a very interesting way for me to, like, build my whole, like, competitive deck. And I think that's pretty cool. I think that is actually very cool. Like there's cards that wouldn't normally see play that do now.
And I think, like, some of it's going to be long term to see how right now this is very new. There's not really people, pro level people that are trying to break best of one format. So I think we'll know a lot more over the next year or so as we actually have high EV arena tournaments and people trying to break the format. See how healthy Magic and the metagame can be with this style of play. And I think only time will tell to some extent.
Yeah, and I want to sneak this in. So they tried to change the individual card rewards. They tried to remove them, replace it with more gold. People freaked out. They rolled back on it. And I think one of the biggest takeaways from your article, Seth, was that Wizards can't be doing this anymore. They claim it's a beta, but it's not a beta. It's a live game, right? People are sinking money into the game and it's permanent. They can't even undo this. And these games are feeding into people's careers, right? Like the whole esports thing, Twitch streamers, like everything. They can't kind of be willy-nilly walking around and making changes. Oh, we're listening to our customers this and we're listening to our customers that. Like, it's good that they're doing that, but their changes have consequences. So every time they make a change, they need to be like 100% sure this is the change they want because it's a live game. And if we do have multiple millions of people, every time they push out a change, it affects everyone. So this is not a closed beta. This is not a test run at your local, game store anymore. It's a big thing. So I just don't want to see these changes flip-flopping back and forth anymore.
Yeah. I mean, we got $1 million tournament in 3 months. So I think we're a beta, we're just testing things out. That argument has, the time for that has passed. Arena is clearly, with the esports announcement, trying to put itself in the big leagues, and that means I gotta act like they're in the big leagues and be super careful with their communication, with the changes that they're making and how they're doing these things. So I think even more eyes are going to be on Arena. Where there was I guess this transitions to our last really quick topic before Fishmail. There was an article on ESPN about Magic Arena and about the Pro League. Like, we're a legit game now for the first time in a long time. Like, so, but the point, to tie this back into what we were saying, that's a lot that's mainstream. That's a lot of people reading about the game. So every decision and communication from the arena team is going to be magnified by $10 million in this huge prize pool in ESPN articles. So I think it's even more important that they are really careful with that stuff right now. Speaking of the ESPN article, really quick, and then we got to get to fish mail. They announced the 32 players that are going to be in the Pro League for 2019. Essentially, they just went by pro points. 31 of the 32 were the top 32 pro point getters. And then there was also a couple players wouldn't accept the contract or couldn't accept the full-time streaming contract thing. So we had one slip in. What did you think of that? Are you happy with the 32? Secondarily, we missed out on some big names. Like LSV was not in the top 32, so he's technically not in this pro league. Hall of Famers like Finkel, Kaibuda, they are also not in there. What do you think of the top 32 in the pro league for 2019?
I think it works. The list works because it's just the points, right? Like, I mean, these players probably have enough points, and I mean, I love LSV, so I mean, I'd love to see him on this list, but I think what they've got right now and how they decided who the most of the 32 are works for me.
Yeah. What I realized is there are a lot of Magic pros. Like I went through the list. There are a lot of people, like, you know them all. I don't know how I'm going to follow 32 pros through this league. So it'll be interesting to see how they break it down. Like, are you going to have conferences and divisions or something? Are you going to have rivals? Like, I don't know how they're going to weave these storylines so that you can follow something, but there's just so many people, so many countries in it. And like Crim said, if it's just pro points, like what is there to argue about? And it's the first season. After the season, we're going to see what the real qualifying looks like, right? And then it'll get into the normal groove of things, but you have to seed it somehow, right? It's like an expansion sports team or something. Like just the first year, it's all weird and you just got to let everything settle in. And then it just follows the normal process otherwise.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's hard to complain. I think there would have been many more complaints if it was like this silver showcase where they just kind of picked popular people from various games and put them in the pro league. I think that would have been more of a disaster. I think the main question for me is what happens to the rest of the pros? Like half or something ish of the platinum pros had enough pro points to be put in the pro league, but then you got all the gold pros, the silver pros. So we haven't heard yet. Are these people still going to be able to go to all the pro tours, for example, like golds were in the past? So I think there's a big question of what happens to the next like 150-ish players that weren't quite good enough to make it into the pro league, but based under the past system, were good enough that they were showing up to all the pro tours or qualified for all the pro tours. So I think that's what I'm waiting to see. I think the next step. But as far as the list itself, I don't think they really could have done it any other way than just a strict cut by pro points.
Can you imagine the outrage if it was like half popular Twitch streamers? It's like, and Ninja rounds out our, like, does he even know how to play Magic? I don't know.
I would like this. I would watch that though. It would be funny, but that would be.
That's the thing.
Funny.
It would totally work because I would watch it too.
Well,
don't give Watsy any ideas here.
we know some of their tournaments. The big $1 Million Arena tournament is an invitational. So I wouldn't be surprised if the top 32 is there, but some of the invites are going to Amaz and Kibblers and LSVs and like these big personalities, even though they aren't in the top 32. So I think we might still be seeing that, even though they're not technically in the pro league.
My big question is, where do Hall of Famers slot into all of this? Because they kind of got their benefits cut here. Like, if we're not having pro tours anymore, they're not getting these free invites to pro tours. So what does being in the Hall of Fame get you besides reputation? So it'll be interesting if they get slotted into the arena tournaments or they're somehow slotted into the qualifiers somewhere, or what they actually get for being part of the Hall of Fame.
Yeah, lots of questions still to come, but we're slowly getting information, and so far so good, I think, as the information trickles out. So anyway, Richard, go ahead, Crim, sorry.
I guess the last thing about this would be the cool thing about the announcement and everything going super esports for Magic is to see players from like professional players from other card games now trying to like get into the Magic competitive scene. So that'll just make it so I want to see where those other players, like other streamers and all these other competitors from other games stack up with like Magic pros. So I think that's really cool. Cause I see like other, like, it's like people from like Liquid, now wanting to play Magic Arena competitively and try to compete for the $10 million. Or whatever.
Yeah, It's gonna be exciting to see how that shifts out, and if it brings in some of those high level players from other games, because there's a legitimate prize pool now for the first time in a long time. So
yeah.
Anyway, Richard, we're running a bit long, but guide us through as much fish mail as you can before we run out of time today.
All right. If you have questions, send them to @MTGGoldfish with the hashtag MTGFishmail, and we'll get to your questions on air. Now, lucky for us, most of these questions have to do with Arena Best of Ones, the top 32 players. So we've talked about most questions that people have submitted, but there are some interesting ones here. Tovari Colgate, would Fatal Push be too strong in Pauper? Who knows anything about Pauper? Seth, you've been playing more Pauper recently.
I do play Pauper. Would Fatal Push be too strong? Probably not. The spells used to be really good. You have stuff like Snuff Out and some pretty powerful cheap removal spells. So I'm gonna go with no. If you got Lightning Bolt, you got Snuff Out, you have these cheap free counter spells, I think Fatal Push would be fine.
Alright, M Pen Knock 010. If Obi-Wan Kenobi had an EDH deck, what would the commander be? This is hard.
Broke up a little and I did not hear. I heard Obi-Wan Kenobi commander.
Who would your commander be for Obi-Wan Kenobi EDH deck?
Oh. I have no idea.
Crim, this is all you.
Gerard? Because he kind of looks like...
What?
Yeah, Gerard.
First of all, Obi-Wan can't have black in his mana cost. This doesn't seem right.
But Vision... Like, no, hold on. Oh, I guess, yeah, because his ability. I'm just thinking more of like how Obi-Wan Kenobi looks at this point.
Oh, you can't do art because different artists have different interpretations. You got to go with the abilities and the flavor of it. Come on, Crim.
Obi-Wan Kenobi has a...
Wait. Okay, hold on. Crim, are you a Harry Potter fan?
I mean, I've read enough of the books and I watched the movies. Yeah, sure.
All right. DJ Jono B has a follow-up from last week where someone asked us, what are the guilds for each house in Harry Potter? What are your answers, Crim? Do you even have an answer? Because we had nothing.
This is an easy one. Just like Slytherin is Demir.
Okay, yes.
And then Gryffindor, I would say, we'll get back to Gryffindor. Hufflepuff, I think, is Simic. These are just my opinions and probably going to, they may not be, 100% accurate to the houses, but yeah, like Hufflepuff I think is like Simic, and then Rakdos, there isn't a house for Rakdos.
There isn't a house for Rakdos.
Yeah, the house of Rakdos is more like just Voldemort, right? Like
yeah. So Jono B says Gryffindor green white. A lot of people I saw said Boros in the comments last week. Ravenclaw Azorius. Hufflepuff 5C Jank.
Hufflepuff is totally like Simic, I think, in my opinion. And as we already said, Slytherin and Demir are one and the same. They're like that is just too easy.
All right. To top things off here, this is a very popular thing. So we have no culture here on the podcast, Crim. I don't know if you know this. Okay. Between me and Seth, pop culture eludes us.
Okay.
Seth, famously, no MCU, no DCU, nothing.
Is Wolverine a hero?
So we have a question here from a Variant Human. How many of the top 100 movies on IMDb have we actually seen? So 100 is a lot. We'll do top 10, okay? And we're gonna see Shawshank Redemption.
Seen it.
Oh wow, we're good. Godfather.
Seen it. All three.
I haven't seen it.
Oh.
I've seen it on TV in like bits and parts, but I've never actually seen like the full movies like
so
through
good.
and through. As an adult, Like as a child, I've seen like parts of it. Godfather Part 2 is number 3.
Yep.
Number 4, The Dark Knight.
Definitely seen it.
Nope.
Seen it.
A little overrated, but definitely seen it. Oh, hot take.
You didn't see The Dark Knight, Seth?
No.
You really don't like DC.
Why would I have seen a Batman movie?
Why wouldn't you?
Number 5, 12 Angry Men.
Oh, 12 Angry Men is great. Yes.
Have you seen it?
Oh, I've seen it. Multiple times. It's so good.
I've never even heard of this. It's a 1957
that
movie.
one I don't know. That doesn't have Vin Diesel, right? I think
No, this is like from the 50s, I believe. 50s or 60s. It's a classic.
Crim, we gotta watch. I've never even heard of this, but apparently it's so classic. Okay. Number 6, Schindler's List.
Yep.
Seen it?
I've actually not seen it.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Very good movie.
I would see
Very
it,
powerful
but I just
movie.
haven't.
All right, 7, Lord of the Rings, Return of the King.
I don't
Seen
like
it.
that entire franchise.
I don't really like Lord of the Rings either, but I've seen them all.
What?
How
I read all the books.
all of that and not a superhero movie?
Has anyone seen the extended cut where it's like 8 million hours?
No, dude. There's no way I want to sit through more of that.
Lord of the Rings, great. Hobbit, the book, great. Hobbit, the movies, terrible.
Well, it's like a 3-page book being turned into 3 movies. So.
Number 8, Pulp Fiction.
That is Quentin Tarantino is just amazing.
Yeah, this is one of my favorite movies.
Yep.
9, The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly.
Yep,
Oh, of course.
definitely.
Yes.
What? I haven't.
I was forced to watch that in my film
It's a-
class.
1966.
It's a little long, but it's really good.
All right. Number 10, last one on the list, Fight Club.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
mhm.
Okay. I mean, we did pretty well. I mean, Seth saw most of the movies.
I like old movies, so I've seen a lot. I've actually intentionally tried to watch a lot of classic movies that are supposed to be the greatest movies of all time. So I do really enjoy them. I like culture. I don't like pop culture. So I have
the
not
most
seen
recent
X-Men
movie
or
you've
any of
seen?
that stuff. But I watch old movies. What is the most recent?
Oh,
No.
that's a good one. Okay, the most recent in a movie theater. It has to be like full committal here.
Yeah. That made you get up and want to go see it.
Oh, jeez, I don't even know.
When was the last time you've been to the movie theater?
Oh man, this is okay.
Like
So the last movie
Jurassic Park, the original.
the last movie I saw in the theaters, and this wasn't. My younger brother really likes basketball and also YouTube, and I took him to
Uncle
see.
Drew?
Yes, I took him to see Uncle Drew. So
That's pretty recent.
that's
I
the
watched
last
Uncle
movie
Drew.
I've seen in the theater.
It was fun.
Both
It's a
saw it
fun
in
movie.
theaters.
Yes, Uncle
Yes.
Drew in the theater. from YouTube ad to the movie theater.
I didn't even know it was a YouTube ad. So we watched the movie, and then afterwards we watched all the YouTube ads.
I would not have gone on my own though. Like I wouldn't have just went to see Uncle Drew. So before that, it might have been Jurassic Park.
The original. Crim, what was the last movie you saw in theaters?
Like a week ago.
Wait, what movie? What movie?
I'm trying to think here. What was the most recent one I've seen? I think it was I'm blanking right now. Spider-Man. Spider-Man.
Oh yeah, that was my movie too. I just saw it.
That wasn't a week ago. That was like actually Friday. Never mind.
Yeah, it was like literally a couple days ago. It just released.
And then I'm gonna go see Aquaman. Surprise! I'm like the opposite of Seth. I watch every superhero movie that comes out, and I make sure I do. I'm
gonna watch Aquaman and expect nothing. You need to expect nothing.
Oh, of
Otherwise,
course, it
you'll be
looks
severely
absurd.
disappointed.
Wait, what? Seth, have you seen the trailer for Aquaman? What do you think when you look at that? When you watch that?
I have not even seen the trailer.
Okay,
What's
good.
an Aquaman?
I mean, come on.
It's actually funny. Most of my superhero knowledge comes from like other shows that have spoofed superhero things. So that's how I know. Like there was, I think, a Family Guy scene about Aquaman. So that's like the extent of my Aquaman experience.
That is actually my experience with Aquaman too, because I'm not a big DC fan. And I know nothing about. I don't know what his powers are. I only know from like incidental references in other pieces of media. He talks to fish.
I actually do like the newer iterations of Aquaman. So, I mean, come on, the Goldfish crew, we have to go at least watch Aquaman.
Oh man. But what if it's not good?
Well, you know, we could talk about how not good it is.
Oh, what was the last DC movie that was terrible that I had high expectations for?
I watched Justice League. That was like the worst time of my life.
Oh yeah, Justice League. Justice League was. We're like, oh, Avengers was so good. Justice League must be good, right? Nope. They clearly didn't get their act together.
They do.
All right, that is all our fish mail. Maybe we'll tune in next week with the review of Aquaman. Or Uncle Drew.
I would love to hear both of you review Uncle Drew.
I liked Uncle Drew. It was a good movie.
It was pretty funny. It was better than I would have imagined.
It was a fun movie.
Well, Seth, come on. Better than I imagined.
It was from like a Nike ad or something. I just knowing the origins, I figured it would be really bad, but I actually laughed a little bit. There are some pretty funny parts.
All
Anyway.
right, that's all our fish mail. Thanks everyone who sent them in. If you have a question, send them to @MTGGoldfish with the hashtag MTGFishmail, and we'll get to your questions on here.
And I think that brings us to the end of episode 102 of the Goldfish Podcast. So, Richard, Crim, thanks for hanging out. Everyone, thank you for listening. Again, thanks to Spikes Academy for their support. You can get 10% off with the Goldfish over at spikesacademy.com. So, until next week, this is the crew signing out.